When I was stationed at Lackland Air Force Base from 1997 to 2000, I was introduced to swing dancing through my friends. I was immediately hooked and devoted all of my Sundays dancing at a bar called The Lab. I even won a trip to Las Vegas during a contest at the commissary. I traveled to Austin frequently and met the Lindy Hop legend Frankie Manning at a workshop in Houston. But what always stood out to me was that there were very few black faces at these events, even though swing dancing began in Harlem. My love of swing dancing brought me to Glen Echo, Maryland, a place that looks like it's stuck in the 1930s, a fitting place for a swing dance in the Spanish ballroom. It is here I'll meet with Sarah Garr, a swing dance enthusiast and a recent DC transplant. And why do you like to swing dance?
I like to swing dance because it's fun. I picked it up at a time when I had a good amount of free time, and I started doing it with a lot of other friends that were also learning at the same time, and I've just made so many friends that I can't stop. Even moving to a different city, I just make more friends while dancing.
So, tell me, what do you know about the history of swing dance?
I definitely know the basics. So the dance swing dancing, or Lindy Hop, and the larger family of swing dances originally started in Harlem with black dancers, and it was the movements that were done to jazz of the time. And jazz, which is uniquely American, developed, and then swing dancing, which is uniquely American, developed as the movement that accompanied jazz.
It is also an American tradition for white people to appropriate and popularize African American culture and make it their own.
They start dancing lots of places and listening to music, even black musicians who they widely acknowledge as the best musicians to play jazz and do these things, and then white people are dancing to them but not allowing black dancers in to dance. And so there's all these segregated spaces, and they pushed the black community out of swing dancing, even though black Americans were the ones that originated this dance form and developed it and codified it and made it how amazing it is.
Why do you think that African Americans were pushed out of the scene?
Definitely racial bias, because white people were not comfortable with anyone who was not white. You might have some white Americans that would be comfortable dancing in a largely African American space for swing dancing, but then as it sort of became more popular and there were larger white crowds, they would hang out more with people that looked like them, as opposed to black Americans or African Americans who they maybe didn't have as much in common with because there was more segregation, people weren't educated together, people weren't socializing together, they literally didn't live in the same neighborhoods. So it's like all these factors just keep stacking up, and it's basically because we don't want to be around people that aren't like us unless we make a conscious decision to do that.
And with that, I made a conscious decision to take my first lesson in 20 years to see if the dance scene changed from over 80 years ago. I felt a little dusty, but it felt familiar. The floor was sprinkled with new and experienced dancers. Some were hamming it up with their flourishes and interpretations. Later, I spotted a young black dancer who I discovered is from Baltimore, Maryland. He graciously accepted my dance request, and while we danced, I realized that some black people have found a way to keep this dance alive. Their dance scene may be miles away from gentrified DC, but I felt reassured that, as usual, black folk have always continued to honor swing dance's legacy. It may still be in self-segregated spaces, but it is here to stay.